guys, welcome to a new video. In this video I will share with you the story that was planned for the Alice Asylum game, which would be the sequel to Alice Madness Returns. So let's begin. The game starts with a memory of Alice as a child walking in an English garden at night. This serves as a tutorial for the basic moves of Alice. Afterwards, a moon appears and reveals an evil face. It chases Alice while singing a lullaby, causing the animals of the game to fall to the ground. Alice must escape with the help of the player. She finds a sanctuary, the little house. The only sound Alice hears is the ticking of a large grandfather clock. There she finds her burnt family. They are eating cake and shouting that it's their fault while melting. At the same time, a melody with hints of the Happy Birthday song plays. An earthquake shakes the house, and moments later Alice faces the caterpillar. They talk, and they say that she still doesn't understand her shadows and needs to learn. Alice simply states that she wants to escape the nightmare. Next, she stands in front of a mirror and sees a shadowy creature that speaks to her. In the end, the creature breaks the mirror and its pieces cut Alice. One piece was about to pierce her heart, but she grabbed it and it turned into a dark smoke, eventually transforming into the Vorpal blade. After that, she must defeat some shadow monsters, serving as a tutorial for the weapon. Alice seems to be almost killed by the shadows, but hears a lullaby. Tentacles surround Alice and she's back in her house. She points the blade at the moon and screams that she will escape. The lullaby makes Alice faint. Her eyes turn completely white and she levitates towards the moon, which makes a creepy smile. The next part happens in the carnival, and Alice opens her eyes and sees Jack Turtle pushing a lever that ejects her from her bed, and the bed automatically dresses her in a yellow dress and aids makeup that creates a big smile. She is pushed to a slide where a white rabbit doll is preparing to jump and tells her to follow him. The turtle also goes after them, singing a song along the way. Alice then notices two balloons in the air blocking the sun. They are in fact horrible representations of the Tweedles, Dee and Dum. Their intense gaze leaves Alice in the shadows. In the sky, Alice can still see the creepy moon. The rabbit leads Alice to a fortune teller. The place is filled with globes that are broken, burned, or stained with blood. Alice breaks a globe, and the fortune teller restores it. She says that Alice can gather all her pieces and has another opportunity to see things. The crystal ball transforms into a snow globe and hypnotizes Alice. The fortune teller touches Alice's forehead and the third eye appears there, while her normal eyes turn white. When Alice touches her third eye, it disappears like smoke. With this new ability, she would be able to find the caterpillar again. He tells her that this time she should be able to see things she never saw before, and that the shadow creature she met earlier was more afraid of her than the other way around. The area around Alice turns into a flurry of snowflakes. It's nighttime, and Alice finds herself in front of her family home. She explores the house as she remembers that terrible night. She blamed the cat, which had almost set the house on fire twice before by stepping on a lamp, but deep down she knew it was something else. It didn't make sense that the doors on the second floor were locked, and before they went to bed, she and Lizzie had played the game of making sure every lamp was turned off. Alice sees flashbacks of a shadow figure turning a key in a lock and spilling oil on the ground. Alice runs in a corridor loop, and when she reaches the figure, she sees that it wears glasses before it disappears. I think we all know who it is after playing Alice Madness. A light is seen in the middle of the darkness, falling to the floor and igniting the oil. Alice's family screams can be heard. After opening door after door, Alice reaches her bedroom. Now we must play as Alice, running away from the burning house, trying all the doors, and once more, Alice realizes that she failed to save her family. Alice is taken away in shock and crying. She sees her reflection and a shadow appears on her face. She can't avoid feeling responsible. Alice lashes out and tries to bite the people holding her down. We can see the shadow merging with her face. The caterpillar makes her realize that the shadow monster is herself. Alice finds herself in the asylum, and we see fast scenes where she's beaten, cut, starved, and slammed into the walls and floor of her cell. During her hysteria, her eyes turn black. Alice returns to the fortune teller tent. It's just her, the rabbit, and the broken globes. Alice is breaking down and decides that she needs to escape the circus. Instead of taking the determined path, Alice makes her own path using her intuition and mind's eye. This is kind of like a new ability. The circus performers bully Alice, and this kind of makes her remind her the time she spent in the asylum. When she can't take it anymore, her eyes once more turn dark and she screams. This will be the moment that the hysteria mode is introduced in the game. The circus starts to crumble. We begin to see rotten wood and rusty structures. When attacked, some of the circus performers turn into mechanical enemies called manipulators. They can mimic other enemies. When their core is unprotected, they become more unpredictable and dangerous. Alone they are weak, so they tend to form groups and go after Alice. Alice reaches the big top where a huge stadium tent is located. When she enters, she transforms into a clown. The audience laughs at her and she gets mad. Tweedledee and Tweedledum are there, and they are the ringmasters. They arrive floating in the balloon that Alice had seen previously. Tweedledee says, "This is all very much off script. A dreadful performance. Sloppy. The little girl has clearly forgotten her lines and her place." The audience laughs again. Alice asks why she's being kept in prison there. They say they are simply following the Queen's orders, who doesn't want to see her. Alice swears revenge on the brothers and the Queen. It's time for a boss fight against the Tweedle brothers. One of the brothers will be up in the sky, tossing jack bombs at Alice from a balloon. The other will be whipping the troublemaker. To defeat them, Alice needs to turn their unity against them. After defeating them, Alice climbs their balloon with the rabbit and uses it to escape. She will also be able to use the jack bombs and the troublemaker as weapons from now on. Alice has a moment of peace and reflection while on the balloon, until she sees that strange moon again. The moon sings a lullaby that makes Alice slower and sleepy. Alice needs to use the vorpal blade to cut through the spell by deflecting, dodging, and attacking musical projectiles to destroy them. If the player fails, Alice falls asleep and it's game over. If you manage to defeat the lullaby, the balloon crashes into the moon's face. Alice and the rabbit end up in the mouth of the moon. The balloon deflates and falls. disappearing in the middle of the clouds. In the moon's mouth, a welcome party awaits for a fight. Alice discovers that the moon is not a living thing, but a mechanical construct made by the ether. Her new objective before meeting the Queen is to deactivate the moon. In the engine room, she finds the massive clockwork heart that powers it. Alice needs to make her way through waves of manipulators to reach and destroy the manipulator manufacturer. Somehow, a mock turtle appears and says that reality is way better, as Alice wouldn't run out of friends like in real life. Alice continues to explore until she finds the bridge of the moon. The mock turtle appears again, begging Alice to return to the circus and stop looking for the Queen. Alice would collect some shard elements and place them in a way that shows the route to reach the Queen. After completing this puzzle, the moon faces in the direction of the Queen's domain. The mock turtle screams in rage and transforms into a manipulator, revealing its true form. The mock turtle, or manipulator, says, "It's me, Alice, your only friend. I'm telling you, you will never make it. You are too small. You can't survive out there. You are too weak. No one wants you. No one else loves you." And Alice says, "As you said, this time my show is starting. We must not be late." This enemy will be a boss that transforms into all enemies that Alice fought before, with the mock turtle being the last. For each enemy, Alice must use different combat strategies. Defeating this boss triggers an explosion that starts a fire on the bridge, and the moon begins to fall, crashing into a forest. During the impact, Alice is thrown into the air while the rabbit clings tightly to her chest. For some odd reason, Alice begins to grow until she is sitting in the grass. The mock turtle swings lazily in a tiny pod by Alice's side. On its back, you can see a very small circus. Nearby, we see remains of the fallen moon. The tiny clockwork hearts are still working. Alice picks one up and gives it to the rabbit. She remarks how the troubles get smaller when you change your perspective, and the rabbit nods in agreement. Alice smiles and gives him the tiny heart, which he puts in his pocket. Only later in the game we will learn its function. This would be one of the parts needed to assemble the champion, a powerful being that would help Alice. The developers thought it didn't fit the story and the design of the game, so it was removed. Alice gets up and sees the red castle in the distance. She proceeds to the Queen's garden. In the maze, Alice encounters the card guards for the first time. However, they just ignore her and don't attack her, even if she kills them. On the other hand, she sees the guards going after the Shadow Alice that we saw before. It looks more human, but it's still broken. The Shadow says, "Delightful, you've started to carve your own path. Remarkable what can be achieved when you are pointing a blade at the heart of your troubles." Then it locks eyes with Alice, smiles, and disappears, leaving dark tentacles of chaos that kill the guards. The dark flash begins to spread through the maze. This chaos infection turns enemies and other neutral or friendly NPCs into additional enemies, or causes them to explode. Alice will fight against these chaos creatures, with the card guards helping her. It's strange, but both Alice and the guards must work together against the chaos. Alice arrives at the Fortress of Sorrow, where she sees a massive statue of herself crying and overlooking the maze. As Alice approaches, she hears the sound of horses. She then sees the hobby of horses arranged in glass containers separated by bushes. Alice stops to admire the trapped weapons, and the hobby horses press up against the glass, following her gaze. From behind the bushes, the weird and creepy knave child appears. They engage in a game of hide and seek, with Alice following the sound of his laugh. Later, when they talk, the knave says that he has always been dreaming of waiting for Alice there. He explains that every time the queen would capture and torture her, she would eventually return to the circus while he would lose his head. Alice becomes mad again and hurls the knife at the knave. He dodges and the hobby horse weapon becomes free, which Alice then picks up. Literally the blade broke the glass and set the hobby horse free. Then their conversation is like this. The knave says, "Such anger, this is exactly how it always starts. Not that I really care, the only difference is in the blade. Something always breaks when it comes to you, but you don't get much further." Alice says, "I don't like your tone." And he says, "But you will. Let's save some time and some injury, shall we? As always, I, after some prodding, tell you that you can proceed directly to the Queen's castle through her gardens, except it was all destroyed just as I arrived here. Now, I will tell you. The only way to the Queen's castle is through judgment, but that's suicide for someone like you." Alice says, "Someone like me?" He says, "The judgment devours those heavy with guilt, and you are drowning in it." And then he disappears. Alice continues through the broken structures and floating islands of what used to be the Queen's land. Her objective is to reach the courthouse visible in the distance. When Alice finally enters the courthouse, the knave appears behind her. Card fence is in his fingers. He doesn't look at her as he was already expecting her arrival. He says that if she is innocent, she will be able to reach the Queen. If she is found guilty, she will be sentenced to croak for eternity. Alice responds that she will take her chances because she knows she isn't guilty and expects the law to be fair. The knave says that the innocence is not determined by the truth but by power, and that Alice has her back marked with guilt. Alice, now enraged, tells him that he is the one who should watch his back, and he disappears again. The courthouse is a place of laws and order. Alice sees chess pieces moving around until they recognize her and stare. They all point at Alice, whispering to each other, and the word "trial" can be heard repeatedly a lot of times until they are shouting it at her. They insist that she should stand trial. Alice declares that she has nothing to fear. Alice then faces a series of trials consisting of puzzles, combat areas, and navigation challenges. These trials occur in the main wall, a surreal embodiment of bureaucracy, while the judges read aloud Alice's supposed crimes and sins. Alice completes all the trials only to find out that she is ultimately declared guilty and sentenced to croak for eternity. So the voice says, "Guilty of being overly naive, innocent to a fault, curious behind reason, and ultimately to blame for everything." She screams lies, "Your system is corrupt, I've passed every test, there is no justice here." Alice hears someone laughing. It is the knave in a higher seat. He points at Alice and says in a childish tone, "I told you so." Furious, Alice bursts into flames and screams her rage at the mechanical face of judgment. Alice begins attacking the chess puzzles and discovers that they are also infected by chaos, and this segment of the game introduces infernal power. After defeating all the enemies, it's time for a boss battle with the blind judge. He appears to be underwater, making strange movements. To win the fight, we must memorize the symbols that appear on the top of the judge's head, which correspond to the order in which we need to attack his hands. So I will stop the story here and continue in the next video. If you guys enjoyed this video, Don't forget to leave a like to help the video reach more people and subscribe for more videos. Until next time, bye bye!